Chapter 769 Mending the Pot. Blizzard City. The combat command center was shrouded by a huge black boundary, tens of thousands of troops were gathered outside, and the sound of guns and cannons was loud, but no one was able to attack inside. Since Zhu Jing was inside, they threw in the towel, and were even more unable to use too powerful a means of demolition to attack. At this moment, outside the command room, Reincarnation Squad and New Heavenly God Squad were engaged in an incomparably grueling fight. The 4 captain-level characters all chose to enter other battlefields to fight, which was actually a protection for the team members. Otherwise, in such a narrow space, if they really fought, everyone would be killed by the aftermath of the battle. However, it was clear in everyone's minds that the key to deciding the winner was still in the 4 captain-level figures. In the middle of the field, the battle between Jiu Shen and Sun Luxuan was very bloody. All that Sun Luxuan practiced was killing techniques, without half of the fancy stuff, and coupled with the fact that he was in a hurry to leave this domain to protect Zhu Jing, so his moves were deadly. However, all of his moves had long been familiar to Sacrifice Jiu Shen. For this action today, Gao Chang Kong had considered all the possibilities. Countless times of deduction, every detail had been clearly considered by them. This battle between Jiu Shen and Sun Luxuan had also been experienced countless times. Gao Chang Kong had testified for him time and time again, even breaking apart and crumbling every move and style of Sun Luxuan and feeding it to Jiu Shen's mouth. And in the end, after the 80-second deduction, he got such a result of a tie between the two sides. So today, Jiu Shen's goal was simple. He hadn't expected himself to be able to kill Sun Luxuan, and right off the bat, his playstyle was based on defense. However, in the other battlefield, the duel between Deng Shentong and Gao Chang Kong was much more terrifying. After no longer hiding his strength, Gao Chang Kong displayed his powerful killing force. The Heavenly Dancing Treasure Wheel's treasure tool gave him powerful combat strength, the immovable King Armor was the main defense, and the Sun Will Sword was the main killing force. Tall and majestic, he was like a Buddhist protector Dharma king as he fought furiously with Deng Shentong to one place. As the son of a rich family, Deng Shentong had practiced swordsmanship since childhood. Only the one he practiced was the Western Flower Sword. The slender body of the sword, the sharp tip of the sword never left the center line of Gao Chang Kong's body. The clash between the Flower Sword and the Sun Will Sword continuously emitted dazzling light in the void of space. The more Deng Shentong fought, the more he was shocked. The moment his move struck, it was as if Gao Chang Kong had already anticipated it, easily blocking it. Like I said, I've already seen your death at the end of the cycle of reincarnation. There's no chance for you to win against me, Deng Shentong. The corners of Gao Chang Kong's mouth carried a faint smile that was one of confidence. Fearless Lion Seal. He formed a seal with one hand once again. The seal at the corner of the Heavenly Dance treasure wheel behind his back lit up. From the center of the enormous treasure wheel, the silhouette of a 3-headed lion emerged and let out a roar at Deng Shentong. Space trembled, and that roar caused Deng Shentong to only feel his internal organs tremble. Pfft! He couldn't help it, and a stream of blood sprayed out from the corner of his mouth. At this moment, Deng Shentong could hardly believe that he was being suppressed by Gao Chang Kong in the combat field. The melee combat ability that he was proud of, the fake death that he thought was subtle, turned out to be clearly seen by Gao Chang Kong. How many times can you use your deduction ability, in the end? Deng Shentong lowered his voice and asked. Gao Chang Kong laughed. Anyway, more than once is all. Want to know? He pointed his left index finger at Gao Chang Kong. Just use your life to try and find out. The Zen seal was once again unleashed. The trajectory of the future would constantly be shifted, and Gao Chang Kong was like a stitcher, constantly mending it. But as long as he was able to get enough intelligence to make deductions, he would always be the winner. Right now, they would kill Deng Shentong first, then Zhu Jing, and then they could easily escape from Blizzard City. With Jangi and Tu Yunlai both absent, and the other captain levels also absent, no one in Blizzard City would be able to stop them. And it was at this moment that Jangi arrived. He saw the huge crystal coffin-like boundary. However, he was in no hurry to act. Among the communicators, he was still communicating with Zhu Zheng. Marshal Zhu, how is the battle situation at the scene? I'm doing my best to rush back, don't worry, I'll do my best to save you guys out. Zhang Yi's tone was filled with anxiety, but his eyes were calm as he looked at the headquarters building. Adding flowers to the brocade was not as good as sending charcoal in the snow. If he wanted to make a move, he had to do so at the most crucial time. To sell a favor, he naturally had to sell a big one so that he could maximize his benefits. Zhu Zheng was slightly excited in his heart after hearing Zhang Yi's words. Will it be possible to return? Even though I'm injured right now, for the sake of Marshal Zhu and the future of the entire Jiangnan region, I have to stop Gao Chang Kong even if I have to fight for my life. Zhang Yi spoke with conviction. Zhu Zheng was somewhat touched inwardly. Zhang Yi had fought to that extent in Tianhai City, but he still didn't forget to come back to save him. It seemed like he still had too much prejudice against Zhang Yi before. Gao Chang Kong is fighting Deng Shintong, and my guards are being held back by Jiyushen. The scene is chaotic right now, the Reincarnation Squad's people are trying to kill me, and the Tang Clan's people are protecting me. Zhang Yi, you have to rush back as soon as possible. We need strong support. Zhu Zheng was also clear that only the appearance of a captain-level combatant would be able to change the critical situation in front of him. Zhang Yi nodded vigorously, don't worry, I was already at full speed. Don't hang up the call, I need to be aware of the situation at the scene at all times. Please keep that in mind. Zhu Zheng did not know what Zhang Yi meant, but he needed Zhang Yi right now, so he nodded his head and agreed. Zhang Yi was sitting at a place not far from the command center building, nibbling on his alien food while listening to the shouting and killing sounds coming from his headphones. He thought of a method of mending a pot that was mentioned when he was reading in the past. The master's family had a leaky bottom of the pot and asked the pot mender to come and fix it. While scraping away the soot from the bottom of the pot mender sneaked in 2 more knocks on the pot to make the crack bigger when the master family wasn't looking. Turning back and pointing to the cracks, he said to the master's family, you have a big crack in this pot, and it's good that I found it for you, or else it would still be broken in the future. The master's family was very happy, and thought the pot tinker had been a great help, and paid him more silver money. In the end, the master was happy, and so was the pot tinker. At this moment, Zhang Yi was like the pot mender. He was waiting for the crack at the bottom of the pot to become bigger. Jiyushen had dragged Sun Lushuan down, and the battle between the two of them could not be distinguished at all in a short period of time. However, on the side of Deng Shintong and Gao Chang Kong, the situation was becoming more and more unfavorable for Deng Shintong. Gao Chang Kong was even more powerful than he had imagined. The Heavenly Dancing Treasure Wheel's ability to use only 4 spell seals made Deng Shintong completely overwhelmed. Gao Chang Kong coldly pointed his Sunwell sword at him. The reason why you're an investigation captain, the reason why you're being starstruck, is simply because you were the young master of the Tang family. Chapter 770 The Savior. Deng Shintong's pride was unceremoniously stomped on and crushed on the ground. He spat blood from his mouth and was directly knocked out of the martial arts arena by Gao Chang Kong, landing heavily in front of Zhu Zheng. The members of the 2 investigation teams stopped at the same time. The members of the Reincarnation Squad wore smiles on their faces, as if they were not the least bit surprised by the outcome in front of them. On the other hand, the people on Zhu Zheng's side were in deep fear. Previously, they were emboldened because they knew that Deng Shintong was behind them. However, they did not expect that Deng Shintong had lost to Gao Chang Kong. If he had lost to Phoenix Ren before, he would still be able to cover it up by being betrayed by a mole. But losing to Gao Chang Kong was a real failure of force. Zhu Zheng's voice could not help but tremble. Even though he was a hard-blooded soldier, a person of his age could not ignore the threat of life and death. Since you have such strength, why didn't you let us know earlier? In that case, I will definitely train you well and make you the next commander-in-chief perhaps. Zhu Zheng tried to pacify Gao Chang Kong in this way. Gao Chang Kong sneered, oh, would you? It's not that I haven't given you a chance. In fact, I was the one who set up this siege of Eclipse. As long as you guys give me the opportunity to be the protagonist of the event, I can still wait a little longer." He sighed and shook his head with slight regret. "But in your eyes, power is greater than everything. Rather than letting an outer city person who is not sure of his strength to lead, you refuse to give me a chance. I've given up all illusions about you guys." Gao Chang Kong carried the Sunwill sword and took a step towards Yu Zheng. Deng Shintong stood up with difficulty, and none of the new Heavenly God squad members behind him flinched. "Looks like this time, I really have to fight for my life." Gao Chang Kong mocked, "Are you planning to use drugs? However, you should be clear that your potential has long been boosted to the extreme by Deng's technology and ruthless work. Even if you use drugs again, you won't be able to increase your strength much and will only accelerate your death." Deng Shintong laughed with his mouth full of blood. "That's something we'll have to try before we know." He calmly gave himself compound number 5. A few moments later, an even more powerful force erupted from his body. Deng Shintong raised the flower sword in his hand and aimed it at Gao Chang Kong in front of him. An unrivaled and terrifying force was released from the tip of the sword, instantly reaching Gao Chang Kong's body. Gao Chang Kong's left hand had already pinched a seal. The 5th Dharma seal of the Heavenly Dance treasure wheel lit up, and a huge treasure bottle coalesced and molded in front of Gao Chang Kong. The mouth of the bottle was aimed at Deng Shintong, and all of that terrifying and incomparable power was absorbed by the treasure bottle. Deng Shintong clenched his teeth and roared as he continued to output. A crack appeared on the bottle's body with a click. Gao Chang Kong's face was also unable to help but change. Even if he was able to deduce all the ways and means of Deng Shintong's attacks, and then a captain level started fighting for his life, he would not be able to deal with it comfortably. "Immovable Ming Wang!" Gao Chang Kong shouted, and a huge immovable Ming Wang silhouette appeared behind him, his arms spread out to protect him firmly in the center of his embrace. The vase couldn't withstand the power of the Deng Shintong and exploded, the terrifying energy spilling out. The entire floor of the building was agitated by this energy, and the bulletproof glass covering the outside of the floor shattered with a loud bang, being rushed outside by the shockwave. Even the buildings within the building were destroyed in many ways. With this, the view was transparent, and all the sights were taken in by Jangi in the distance. He saw Gao Chang Kong fall back a dozen steps, blood spilling out of his mouth. As for Deng Shintong, his eyes were bloodshot with rage, and he also vomited out a pool of blood in a big gulp. He was not in a very good state at this moment. The two captains fought a losing battle. Only then did Jangi slowly stand up. "It was time for me to make my appearance. The heroes in stories always reappear at the most critical moments to save the day and help the building fall." Holding the sacred ruler in his right hand, he took one step and his entire body instantly arrived outside the command center building. Just like that, he silently hovered in midair. A cloud of black dark matter enveloped the saint ruler in his hand, like a burning dark fire. Zhang Yi, who had suddenly appeared in the middle of the battlefield, caught everyone's attention. Some people recognized the captain's mark on him that belonged exclusively to Tengu Squad. It was the captain of Tengu Squad. He arrived. Great, the commander-in-chief is saved. The faces of the many soldiers down below showed excitement as if they were relieved. Almost everyone looked up at Zhang Yi as if they were looking up at the Star of Hope. Yet, there were also people with lowered gazes and somber looks. Ignoring the shouts from below, Zhang Yi swung the saint ruler in his hand and slashed out at the black boundary in front of him. The impenetrable boundary shattered like glass. Light returned to the command center. At the same time, dark matter surged into the building like a tidal wave of fire, raging and burning. The building shattered and the entire floor was enveloped in dark matter. This dark matter attacked the location where the Reincarnation squad members were. Everyone was taken aback, especially Gao Chang Kong, who for the first time had a stunned look inside his eyes. This was because he could not have imagined in any way that Zhang Yi, after experiencing such a grueling battle, not only did he not die, but he was even able to arrive at the battlefield at such a fast speed. Treasure Vase Seal. Gao Chang Kong immediately made a seal and summoned a treasure vase to resist the power of this move. Jangi then quietly hovered outside the building, overlooking the crowd inside. At this moment, he was like a god. After devouring several captain and vice-captain level origins, his power had also received a huge boost. Nowadays, his spatial power as well was enough to support him to the point where he could achieve freedom from gravity. Gao Chang Kong, I've come to seek revenge on you. The sacred ruler in Zhang hand was suffused with black void power, pointing straight at Gao Chang Kong. With Zhang appearance, the situation on the battlefield instantly reversed. Zhu Zheng's heart was already in his throat, but at this moment, he was quite a bit more grounded. In his heart, he said, "It's a good thing that Zhang arrived, otherwise if he had come one step later, I'm afraid that we would all have to die here." Deng Shintong's mouth was overflowing with blood. He had to accept the fact that he was no match for Gao Chang Kong. But Zhang appearance gave him some comfort. At the very least, it wouldn't result in Zhu Zheng's death because of his defeat. Everyone was looking at Zhang with awe, gratitude, and all sorts of emotions. However, one thing could be confirmed: Zhang prestige in the eyes of these higher-ups in Blizzard City as well as the ordinary soldiers was at its highest level ever. Savior. This word surfaced in everyone's mind. So, it was better to come early than late. On the Reincarnation Squad side, the situation could become a bit unfavorable. Gao Chang Kong was not lightly injured by Deng Shintong's life-fighting strike. If he were to face Zhang Yi and Deng Shintong at the same time, his chances of winning might not be that great. However, Gao Chang Kong had his own methods. Zen Seal, Deduction. He once again used his reincarnation deduction ability, trying to see through the future of this battle with Zhang Yi as his target. A moment later, the corners of his mouth lifted. Because amongst the future he saw, he was still that final winner. Chapter 771 Echoes of Time. Gao Chang Kong stood on top of the ruins with his Sunwell sword in hand. Zhang Yi, Deng Shintong, the two of you go together. Gao Chang Kong has nothing to fear. The fearless lion seal activated and launched itself at Zhang Yi in the air. After the blow was struck, Gao Chang Kong, however, took the opportunity to strike and turned his head to kill Zhu Zheng. As long as he killed Zhu Zheng, then everything would be over. But the moment he made his move, Zhang Yi's figure quickly changed and shifted to a different position. It was exactly in front of Zhu Zheng. The Saint Ruler slashed out and clashed fiercely with the Sunwell sword. The dark flames collided with the golden Buddha light, and half of the sky took on two very different colors. Half of it was as dark as the night demon Skyfall, and half of it was as golden as the 10,000 Buddhas. Boom! The entire ceiling of the tall building was shattered, while the fragments flew towards the air. The surrounding Xenos, below the vice-captain level, couldn't withstand this powerful force and were shaken and scattered all over the command center. At once, a shocking battle erupted below as well. The Yanyan Guards, the city defense force, and the members of the Heavenly God Squad began to surround the members of the Reincarnation Squad. Deng Shintong climbed to his feet and attacked Gao Chang Kong from behind with his flower sword in hand. Lan Xincheng, on the other hand, was protecting Zhu Zheng to the death. Gao Chang Kong's gaze was cold. Now he had no way back. He had to kill Zhu Zheng before the matter would be brought to an end. Even if he needed to face two captain-level inhumans at the same time, he felt that he was still invincible. I've seen through your future, come to your senses. Gao Chang Kong utilized reincarnation deduction to learn about Deng Shintong and Zhang Yi's abilities and fighting styles. Deng Shintong was easy to deal with, Zhang Yi was that biggest trouble. Therefore, he activated the Heavenly Dance Treasure Wheel, intending to break Zhang Yi's foreign space first. As long as the power absorbed at once exceeded the limit, the other space would collapse. The Sunwell sword was raised high as a terrifying energy storm surged wildly with Gao Chang Kong at the center. Zhang Yi, can you block this move of mine? Gao Chang Kong asked in a stern voice. In the next moment, the Sunwell sword slashed at Zhang Yi. The huge energy storm seemed to be able to destroy the sky and the earth, pointing straight at his body, as well as the entire building behind him. The power of this terrifying storm was undoubtedly capable of instantly flattening everything behind Jangi. Jangi subconsciously felt behind him. Zhu Jing was there. If he dodged this move, Zhu Jing and Lan Xinqing would definitely die. It didn't matter if Lan Xinqing died or not, but he had gone through so much effort to rush back, and he definitely couldn't let anything happen to Zhu Jing. After all, when Blizzard City changed to a new commander-in-chief, it might not be in Zhang Yi's best interest to have Zhu Jing in charge. His eyes became serious, and a pitch-black light surged amongst his left eye. After absorbing Takeuchi Mayumi's origin, Zhang Yi awakened a new ability. This ability was very special. It would not directly enhance his combat power, but would bring him a sense of combat awareness. It would allow him to maximize his survival in the middle of a battle. First, he could anticipate the attacks against him in advance and react to them. Second, find where the weakness of the opponent's attack was and defuse it. After the time echo was activated, the vision in his left eye completely changed. It was a different world from the past. The eye of the storm of Gao Chang Kong's move was instantly locked by him. That was where the core of Gao Chang Kong's power was. Zhang Yi raised the sacred ruler in his hand and aimed it at the raging energy storm. Blade of Broken Edge. The dark matter that condensed the power of the void transformed into a huge arrow that shot out from the tip of the sacred cutter, ruthlessly colliding with the Sunwheel swords. The black arrow shot into the middle of the eye of the storm, and an instant later, the raging storm suddenly swelled up. Then it exploded like a balloon, the energies annihilating each other, ultimately only causing a storm that swept through the 8 directions without a single bit of energy affecting the area behind Zhang Yi. With just this one move, the entire command center building collapsed for the most part. Gao Chang Kong's pupils tightened violently. This is impossible. Everything in front of him was completely different from the future he had seen. According to the original deduction, Zhang Yi would either dodge away and Zhu Jing would die. Either he would use the foreign space to absorb his full strength move, and then the foreign space would break. However, a third possibility had unexpectedly appeared. What he did not know was that Zhang Yi, who was opposite him, also possessed the ability to deduce. It was only that Gao Chang Kong's deduction was similar to the operation of a program, yet there was a possibility of deviation. Zhang Yi's deduction ability, on the other hand, was the rules of the time domain, which meant foreseeing the future. In front of higher-level abilities, his reincarnation deduction ability had lost its usefulness. Zhang Yi, why are you blocking me? Gao Chang Kong looked at Zhang Yi and said calmly, I am not your enemy. You, like me, was someone from a lowly background. There is no need to sell your life for such a person. As long as I kill Zhu Jing, I can reshape the order for the Jiangnan region. You don't like to see these old men, as high and mighty as they were in the past either, do you? Come, change this twisted world with me. Gao Chang Kong tried to convince Zhang Yi. And Zhang Yi responded to him with nothing but a cold smile. Shut up. Damn traitor. Marshal Zhu is wise and honorable, and everything he did was for the future of the entire Jiangnan region. You're about to destroy the fruits of countless people's hard work and construction because of your own selfish interests. You're the biggest sinner. These words were of course said to someone on the scene. When Zhu Jing heard these words, he was indeed very moved. Zhang Yi is really a good tube. I was the one who misunderstood him in the past, so it turns out that he has such a heart of gold. Zhu Jing made up his mind. Once this crisis was over, he would definitely cultivate Zhang Yi. As for Deng Shintong? Well, although he also had a certain amount of credit for escorting him, losing to Gao Chang Kong inevitably reduced his points. Nowadays, Zhu Jing's eyes were only on Zhang Yi, a good man who was bold and loyal. Moreover, Zhang Yi looked at Gao Chang Kong, his eyes flashed with killing intent. You set up a trap to kill me in Tianhai City, I can't not avenge this. These words were sincere. Gao Chang Kong knew that he couldn't convince Zhang Yi anymore, so he stopped talking nonsense. Good, then let's see who can have the last laugh. The heavenly dance treasure will behind him flourished with light as he looked at Zhu Jing, killing intent filling his eyes. Kill! He leapt towards Zhang Yi and Deng Shintong to kill them. Gao Chang Kong fought 1 against 2 without losing the slightest bit of ground. But right now, his biggest problem was not winning against Jangi and Deng Shintong, but breaking through this layer of Zhang defense. Zhang was not an inhuman who excelled in offense. Nowadays, he could utilize the power of the void in a more refined manner, but when it came to close combat, his skills were still not as good as Gao Chang Kong. However, Gao Chang Kong could not do anything to him either. Facing Zhang Yi, who possessed the power of space, all of his attacks would similarly be absorbed and bounced back. In other words, Gao Chang Kong and Zhang Yi was the main protagonist of this battle. On the other hand, the severely injured Deng Shintong had become a soy sauce playing existence. This made his heart extremely unhappy, but there was nothing he could do about it. From the perspective of offense and defense, both of them were a level above him. Luckily, with Zhang Yi around, Gao Chang Kong's attempt to kill Zhu Xing had become impossible. Chapter 772 The Great Destroyer of Oblivion Luo. Zhang Yi's timely rescue made Gao Chang Kong's goal of killing Zhu Xing fall through. Now the situation was becoming increasingly unfavorable for him. He was unable to break through Zhang Yi's defense, especially with the condition of having, Zhang Yi was able to predict all of his attacks. Time Echo, which was the superior ability of the Zen Seal, allowed for all-round suppression. It directly sealed Gao Chang Kong's deduction ability. Not to mention Zhang Yi's perverted defense ability. At this moment, the entire Blizzard City's battle force was gathering this way. As long as the delay continued, it was only a matter of time before the Reincarnation squad was defeated. Gao Chang Kong took a deep breath as he decided to abandon this operation. "Let's retreat," he shouted to all the members of Reincarnation squad in the middle of the communication system. When the members heard these words, they couldn't help but feel a bit relieved in their hearts. This operation was a failure for them, they were so close to succeeding. For this day, they didn't know how many times they had rehearsed. Yet heaven's will was so. They had envisioned all the factors in Blizzard City, but only failed to consider Zhang Yi, a foreigner from the outer city. Although there were some regrets in their hearts, they still rushed back in unison according to Gao Chang Kong's instructions. The foreigner who had been known as the Inn, whose real name was rarely known, opened a secondary doorway. Gao Chang Kong took a deep look at Zhu Xing and then placed his gaze on Zhang Yi. "Zhang Yi, this time today, I'll count you as a winner. I have underestimated you. But next time, it won't be that simple." Zhang Yi didn't say anything. Instead, Deng Shintong was the one who walked with his sword, his eyes glaring at the spatial doorway. It was unthinkable to know that it led to a certain direction outside the city, and this was the retreat that the Reincarnation squad had prepared for themselves. "Do you think you guys can escape?" Deng Shintong asked in a deep voice. Gao Chang Kong glanced at Deng Shintong with a few moments of contempt among his gaze. It wasn't a deliberate attempt to humiliate him, but rather, he simply didn't place this defeated man in his eyes. "Deng Shintong, you should thank Zhang Yi for saving your life. Otherwise, you would already be a dead man." Deng Shintong instantly became agitated, but he didn't dare to act rashly because at this moment, he was indeed no match for Gao Chang Kong. He could only cast his gaze towards Zhang Yi, hoping that Zhang Yi would help him stop this person in front of him. Zhang Yi wasn't ambiguous either, looking at his right hand with a lowered brow as the holy ruling dark flame filled the air. "I'm also good at the power of space, so guess if you guys can escape with me around?" Others might not be able to do it, but Zhang Yi was able to destroy their spatial channel. Gao Chang Kong frowned slightly. And just at this time, 2 people suddenly appeared in the air. Jiyushin and Sun Lushuan. The two had been fighting fiercely in Jiyushin's domain for a long time, but there had been no winner or loser. It was only at this time, after receiving Gao Chang Kong's order, that Jiyushin disarmed his ability. Once he figured out the situation at hand, he walked to the front of the Reincarnation squad with 1 person and 1 sword. "Captain, you lead everyone to leave first, I'll pad the rear." A look of intolerance appeared on the faces of the team members. "Lieutenant." This was because the rear guard also meant that he needed to wait until the space gate was completely closed before the mission was considered over. Staying alone in Blizzard City at that time was definitely the end of death. However, the crowd couldn't say anything more. This was because from the very beginning when they joined this plan, they had all had the realization of laying down their lives. Every single person in the Tengu squad was raised from the bottom and trained by Gao Chang Kong himself. And every single one of them hated the injustice of Blizzard City. If they were anyone else today, they would not hesitate to sacrifice themselves to give their other teammates a chance to survive. Gao Chang Kong did not reject Jiyushin's offer. He placed his hand on Jiyushin's shoulder and said in a deep voice, "You will always be my brother, you will be my bravest brother." Jiyushin took a deep breath. Captain. He pulled out a compound 5 from his pocket and stuffed it into his mouth without hesitation. Jangi couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Again? Hoping that you all like to get high, was it? Although in the past, he had always despised this kind of disposable drug that damaged him. However, when it really came to a life and death battle, seeing his opponents using drugs would still bring him a numbing feeling. Compound 5 was very fast-acting, and it was able to quickly burn out a person's potential, even to the point where overuse would kill them. However, at this moment, Jiyushin already had the realization of death, so he exerted his power without the slightest reservation. Boom! Rushing green flames burned around him, and with him as the center, the area within a radius of 1,000 meters was instantly transformed into a sea of green fire. Jangi, Sun Lushuan and Deng Shintong all hurriedly retreated out, unwilling to let this kind of flame of unknown composition touch them. Then around them, however, hundreds of soldiers were unable to retreat in time and were directly overwhelmed by the flames. In the blink of an eye, green fire erupted from their 7 orifices as they wailed and were burned into skeletons. The marvelous thing was that there was not the slightest damage to their clothes and weapons, and the only thing that was burned to ashes was their flesh, blood, and internal organs. Great destruction, annihilation, Luo. Jiyushin slowly raised that huge green battle sword, his eyes completely turned green, and that same green terrifying flame was around him. When a captain-level figure completely started playing with his life, no one could not tremble for it. Gao Chang Kong led his men to leave one by one through the space gate. As for Jangi, they were no longer able to stop them. After all, no one was able to cross the god of death that was Jiyushin. Open, kill, it. Ah! Jiyushin threw his head back and laughed wildly. It was the last revelry of a person who was about to give up his life. When a person was fearless of death, nothing in this world would be able to bind him. The flames in the sky began to surge wildly, wantonly slaughtering everyone around them indiscriminately. Sensing that the situation was not right, Jangi silently retreated behind the crowd. Jiyushin was bound to die, and there was no need for him to play with a dead man. "I'll go protect Marshal Zhu, you guys deal with this guy." Jangi wanted to bolt after saying that. However, Elder Sun Lushuan pulled his arm and said to him with a smile, "The Reincarnation squad has all run away, Zhu Shui is safe now. Youngster, it's better for us to take on the enemy together." Zhang expression darkened and he nodded his head hopelessly in agreement. At this moment, Zhu Xing had already left the battle zone under the protection of Lan Xincheng. The first thing he did after escaping was to pull out his satellite phone and contact the distant Xinjiang region headquarters. "Hello, this is Zhu Xing from Jiangnan region. Execution code name." On the front battlefield, facing Jiyushin, who harbored the heart of certain death, Zhang Yi's trio did not dare to be careless at all. "We have to control him, otherwise, Blizzard City will all be messed up by him." Sun Lushuan reminded the duo. "I understand." Deng Shintong directly opened the Great Sumro environment to influence Jiyushin with illusions. Chapter 773 Guillotine of Hell. Jiyushin had to close his eyes in order to avoid being affected by the illusion technique. But after all, he wasn't like Gao Chang Kong, who had such powerful 5 senses, so his fighting strength and sense of direction were greatly affected. And the 3 of them, Zhang Yi and Sun Lushuan, attacked him from 3 directions. This battle was not an easy one to fight, and the battle flames leveled the entire land within a few miles of the combat command center. And in the end, Guillotine's death was due to the fact that he had overdrawn his origin with Compound 5, and died of oil exhaustion. This was the captain level, a monster with strong attacks and extremely difficult to kill. It was no wonder that so many people did not believe Deng Shintong when he faked his death. Jangi looked at Guillotine's corpse and let out a long sigh of relief. It's a pity that Gao Chang Kong and the others gave escape. Jangi sighed. They won't be able to escape. Deng Shintong gritted his teeth. Even if they escaped Blizzard City, they would still be classified as S-class wanted criminals and hunted down by the entire kingdom of Huaxiu. They will surely die. Zhang Yi, however, said, but with Gao Chang Kong's strength, it's very difficult to kill him. Gao Chang Kong's ability was very perverse, although his deduction ability was somewhat inferior compared to foretelling the future. However, the fact that he could use this power multiple times in the middle of a battle would allow him to increase his strength faster than an ordinary person. Especially when a certain person was selected as the target, it was possible to target the training. Coupled with the 6 powerful Dharma seals of the Heavenly Dance Treasure Wheel, the power he possessed was quite terrifying even amongst the captain level. Zhang Yi pondered, Deng Shintong's alien energy index is only 9,200. So Gao Chang Kong must at least have around 9,600. He should be the closest to an epsilon level inhuman at the moment. Saying this, he added, other than me. Just as the three of them were chatting, Zhu Zheng's voice came from not far away. Don't worry guys, he won't be able to escape. Zhang Yi looked over. Zhu Zheng's expression was a bit tired, but due to the good protection of the crowd, he did not suffer any injuries, only that he accidentally rubbed himself when retreating and had a bandage on his arm. Zhang Yi could not help but inquire, you still have a backhand? Zhu Zheng smiled, of course. He raised his head and looked high into the sky. He will definitely die. Zhang Yi didn't know where Zhu Zheng got his confidence. If he had not arrived in time, Zhu Zheng would have been killed by Gao Chang Kong. Now he was running out again with an air of confidence. But just at this time, Zhang Yi's ears suddenly heard a clattering sound of chains dragging. He and Deng Shintong couldn't help but look at the sound. Suddenly, a misty fog surged in the air, and the sound of chains was getting closer and closer. From amongst the mist, 2 iron chains poked out, one pitch black and one pure white. They gradually went from shapely to massless, rapidly spreading over towards the front. There was an aura of death spreading around the chains. It was eerie, terrifying, and gave rise to a sense of fear from the depths of one's soul. Zhang Yi's inner warning sounded loudly. He hurriedly instantaneously moved hundreds of meters away from those 2 chains. And Deng Shintong and Sun Luxuan was taking the same approach. A moment later, they saw that the direction those 2 chains were pointing was a bewildered Yan Yunwei Major. Before he knew what was happening, his body was bound by the 2 chains to death. What the hell? What was that? He screamed in terror before struggling desperately. But no matter how he exerted his strength and used his supernatural abilities, he failed to damage the chains for a single point. The originally confident Zhu Zheng saw this scene, but his face immediately changed drastically. How could this happen? The chains on Major Yan Yunwei's body became tighter and tighter. And at this time, Zhang Yi saw a scene that made the hairs on his body stand up in sweat. From the midst of that mist, 2 tall figures slowly floated out. They were both more than 2 feet tall, one wearing a black robe and the other wearing a white robe, both wearing pointed hats on their heads. On the black hat was written, "Are catching you," and on the white hat was written, "You're here too." Black and white irregulars. Zhang Yi couldn't help but whisper. There was almost no one in the kingdom of Huaxiu who did not understand the image of these 2 ghost gods. The 2 ghost gods were ghostly, their feet void, floating towards the chained Yan Yunwei. Above the entire ruins, everyone was too frightened to move. Even Zhang Yi's 3 men were subconsciously silenced. This was because from those 2 demons and gods, they sensed an extremely terrifying power of rules, far above the captain level. That Yan Yun Major was terrified to the core, and the Yan Yun guards around him were trying to help him out. But no matter what they did, shooting with their guns and attacking with their supernatural powers, the chain remained unmoving. And in a matter of moments, the two ghostly guards had already arrived in front of him, the soul-locking chain held in their palms. The two ghost gods did not even look at the others as they straightly dragged Major Yan Yun's body forward. In front of them, a huge high platform suddenly slowly appeared. Like a huge doorway, it reached into the heavens, towering into the clouds without knowing how many miles of it. The second ghost bound Major Yan Yun's body to the high platform. Only then did the appearance of that doorway gradually emerge. But when everyone saw it clearly, they were all scared to death. For that was not some heavenly gate, but a gigantic guillotine. 10,000 feet in the air, a dark and sharp gate knife hung high above the clouds, the knife's mouth tilted so that if it went down, people and animals would all split into two. Major Yan Yun was scared out of his wits, desperately shouting, but his body was locked by the soul chain. He was unable to break free. Boom! The guillotine fell from the high heavens, pouring down moments later, beheading him from his canopy to the soles of his feet. Major Yan Yun's body was neatly split in two, and if you looked at it from the front, you would even think that nothing had happened to him. But soon after the blade fell, all the visions disappeared. The ghostbusters and guillotines turned into smoke and dispersed. But that Major Yan Yun's body split into two pieces, front and back, and fell down. This horrifying death caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. Because from the beginning to the end, no one had seen anyone take a shot at this Major. It was almost as if he was cursed. Zhu Zheng's body was trembling, not out of fear, but out of anger. Gao Chang Kong, I've been set up by you again. Jangi was struck by a flash of inspiration as he keenly sensed that this matter was unusual. Marshal Zhu, what is going on? Who was the one who wanted to take a shot at our people? Zhu Zhen gave Jangi a deep look, and he was silent for a long time before he slowly said, I asked the one from the Xinjiang region to make a move and help me execute Gao Chang Kong, the traitor. This is that person's ability. Any target targeted by him will definitely be killed, this is the rule of certain death. Saying this, he gritted his teeth and said, Damn Gao Chang Kong, he must have been the one who foresaw all of this. Surprisingly, he escaped.